What's up, everyone? Riley here, and welcome back to the latest segment of Overkill Reviews, BangerTV's weekly heavy metal review show. If you haven't already, make sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and check out that dang Patreon. The wind has blown yet again, and we have another record from that mixed bag band that we know of as The Body. They have done experimental, sludge, doom, noise, industrial, electronic pop, and everything else in between. So this is their 9th full-length record. It is called The Crying Out of Things, and it is out November 8th, 2024, via Thrill Jockey Records. The Body formed in 1999, and they were originally based out of Little Rock, Arkansas. They have only had 2 members this whole time, and it is Lee Buford, our drummer, and Chip King, our guitarist and vocalist. These two met in the early 90s when they were teenagers, and they've been together ever since. So not only are King and Buford my favorite quarter-of-a-century love story, but they now also fall into that small category of bands that didn't have 1,000 different members within their history. Obviously, their roots were laid in metal, but they've recently stated, "We don't see heavy music as strictly being a metal thing, or that it has to adhere to the classic rock band lineup to constitute heaviness." And with that being said, their sound has completely changed, developed, shifted over the years with electronica and pop fusion to drone-filled industrial noise. It's creative. That creative experimentation is an understatement. So what's she got going on this time? If I didn't already give it away, obviously, I'm going to talk about how weird they are. So The Body has been known to be those guys. They're kind of like guinea pigs, and they just wake up in the morning and they do whatever they want to do that day. And more than that, the entirety of their discography from the beginning has been boundary pushing. It's been unusual. It's been expansive. And they've become that archetype of this is the expectation that we're going to get something funky. And I can't even begin to describe to you the amount of varying shit that they've put out over the years. They used to have a lot more death doom instrumentals fundamentally, like when they put out All the Waters of the Earth Turned to Blood in 2010, for example. But even that album had a lot of choral pieces and some strange samples within it. They're also probably the band I know with the most split and collaboration records that I've ever seen. And all of the artists that they do it with, they completely differ. So we've seen bands like Thou, we've seen bands like Full of Hell. They put out a collaboration album with a band called Big Brave. This one almost sounded like it had a more folk level inspiration. They had an EP earlier this year with a DJ called Disfig. It was more dance and electronica. What I'm trying to say is the world seems to be their never-ending creative oyster, and that doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. So The Crying Out of Things has this extensive multitude of layers, and I think after trying to decipher what was what within that extreme noise and deliberateness of loud distortion and low end, I came to terms with the fact that 1, it felt really complicated, and 2, it kind of became this game of hide and seek. So the album cracks in with a song called Last Things. The first 2 minutes are a lowered voice sample. It's very percussion led. It's got a strong bass beat.
Objects, people, events,
and then all of a sudden it's a DSBM song with a trumpet and those high-pitched squealing vocals. The instrumental distortion is so intense. It sounded like when I was a kid and the TV used to freak the fuck out back in the 90s, and it would crackle and crunch and squeal and the picture would go all fuzzy, and it was the most disfigured thing just because it wanted to, and there was nothing that you could do to stop it.
but I can't get it.
So then those weird shifts, changes, and of course those eldritch trumpets follow through the rest of the record as well. Track 2 is called The Removal, and it's extremely rooted in a drum and bass trap foundation, but again, paired with those squealing, harsh equivalencies. The Building is a track that's closer to the second part of the album. It has a really haunting, chant-entrenched female vocal on this one. I believe it is Disfig that they did their collaboration with on the EP at the start of this year. And at the 2:30 mark, when the song breaks, there's a choral melody underneath that chaos. And I'm gonna be honest, it was a beauty of a touch. Beauty. And then there's tracks like All Worries. This is the closer on this record, and it's got its nails sunken into those death doom fundamentals, but it has choir vocals underneath those heavy, weighted, oppressive layers, which I'm always, always, always up for. Something beautiful underneath something so dark and grim. It ends up becoming a constant continuity of sound, range, dynamic, emotion, weight, experimentation, and diversity. And it's just so immeasurable and so infinite. I can't even begin to keep a proper tab on all the things that take place here. And I will take the guy that is just up for diving headfirst into inevitable risk over the guy that's going to play it safe and possibly make something kind of boring and monotonous every time. It's hard. And what I mean by that is it's seriously a hard listen. A lot of what the body does is difficult. It feels complicated. It feels dense. It feels really oppressive. But that's the point, right? That's who they are on a good day, and that's what they do. And for the deadliest of us, that's what people seek them out for. Me, on the other hand, I can't always take that immense level of distorted noise and heat. Thrill Jockey refers to the body as instinctually maximalist. And if you're not ready to love every single inch of her, that enormous ferocity, heaviness, darkness can be quite the weight to carry. They rely so drastically on creating that really dark, gruesome atmosphere. It's got unstructured cuts. It is so unbelievably loud. We're not just operating on a level anymore where we're using a Boss metal zone for that tone. It's like they blew up the entirety of the Boss factory, and then they caught the children's screams along with it that witnessed the crime. It left me worried about my headphones. It left me concerned for Seth Manchester, the guy that recorded and produced this thing, having to listen to it back and play it over and over again the amount of times he did. Credit where credit's due, though. He did an incredible job, and I couldn't imagine anybody else mixing this record. And I also feel just concerned about my emotional well-being afterwards. It's obnoxious the majority of the way through, passing into incoherent jumblings on the low end. It's just death and shrieking. And by the end of it all, I just didn't know my ass from my elbow anymore. And I'm a little bit tired. I feel like this isn't the only album that has let me down this year by cutting out doom within their sound. Aluna. Anyways, the body is constantly cranking out EPs and records, and their last full length was I Shall Die Here, Earth Triumphant in 2023. And what that had, that this one doesn't really have a lot of, is more death doom. And then before that, they put out All I Need to See, And that was their solo full length before that last one, not a collaboration one. And what that one had as well, that this one doesn't really, is more doom, and then so on and so forth. And you probably get the picture. The ending track, All Worries, like I said, was the one on this album with the most death doom orientation, but it simply just wasn't enough for me. And not only do I just naturally gravitate towards those sounds and characteristics, but the vastness, the bleak, dark, loud, ridiculously slow doom paired so well with that full force existential dread that they give you. And I feel that loss greatly now that it's gone. And our adaptation into more trap, drum and bass just didn't do the same chaos and crisis for me. Do you want distortion so loud and obnoxious and unclear that it makes you feel like your head is going to fall out of your butt, but in hell? Then this is the record for you. But buddy, it's got like, it's drone-like, it's got such a high intensity volume, forte, but times infinity, if you will. And there's a lot of just odd, cool, experimental stuff happening here. They cross over into so many different lands, and they've definitely upped the added inspiration of electronica on this one. But all in all, it's just extremely authentic to who the Body are with all of their obscurities. So with that being said, I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5 skulls today on Overkill Reviews. So first and foremost, I have Nepenthe. They are a blackened doom metal project from Guelph, Ontario. They're probably my favorite blackened doom metal project at the moment. They are releasing an EP called The Fading Promise of Tomorrow. It's out November 15th via Via Thrill Records. They're releasing it alongside a remaster of their EP that came out in 2020. They recently got asked in an interview what's up with all the depression and loss and how do they channel their emotions, and they responded by saying, "We are profoundly miserable people who survive solely on alcohol and nicotine." So that's pretty much just what comes out. And I just think that's really funny. Absolutely keeping it real, boys. Second up, I have South Carolina's Witch Pit. They have a new album out November 8th, 2024 via Heavy Psych Sound. It is called Forever Spoken. This is their second full-length record, and it'll do you good for all of your stoner and sludge needs. Last, but certainly not least, I have Toronto's very own niche and eclectic raw black metal project, Sortilegia. They have their latest release out now. It's an EP called Sorceress Communion, and it dropped October 30th. Ancient darkness, the occult, sorcery, all of that putrid hostility that you could ever ask for. And that's all I've got for you today. So I will see you next time.